Thanks to Tabio and Nathan for the great presentation on Jakarta data. For those of you who couldn't join earlier, don't worry, we're going to upload the videos on our YouTube channel as well as our JakartaOne Livestream website later.
Yeah, once we will need a couple of days
Yes.
to kind of prepare all the recordings, so they will appear on the website.
Yes.
And yeah.
So now let's talk about contributions and community, because Jakarta EE is all about community, right?
Yeah, so the community and contributions are actually essence of the Jakarta EE progress. And since this whole effort is actually community driven and vendor neutral, we really wouldn't be able to exist without individual contributions and of course member support. So
yeah. So speaking of contributions and the community, let's hear directly from some of our community members how they got involved in Jakarta EE and where they started from.
Oh, that's a good question. I do remember first contribution. That probably was not the first, but I think it was a template for a website that I was using for my own personal blog. But probably the most relevant one, I would say, it was a contribution to Eclipse Collections, which is part of Eclipse Foundation. So that was much later, but that was probably a bit more potential thing. It was still a small thing. It was fun.
My first contribution to open source dates really back. It was probably year 2000, and we got interested at the time in the enterprise technologies that Sun was putting out, namely the enterprise Java. And at the time I was working for Hewlett-Packard. We were exploring these. We needed a way to try these technologies in open source AGB container, and we discovered JBoss at the time. And the time that we discovered it, JBoss was kind of functional but had many parts that were not implemented yet. And so I started looking at it more, started contributing to the JBoss project. And that's how I started.
I absolutely vividly remember it, yes. My first open source contribution, if you want to call it that, actually was a issue I created in the EJB 3.1 specification. For those of you in the know, basically it's an open standard. Technically speaking, it's not really open source, but essentially all the EJB 3.1 work was done in an open source way. In other words, all the issue trackers and everything else, the reference implementation is really all open source. So it actually counts as open source, although its first contribution, if you will, is really open standards.
Sure. My first contribution was as a marketing manager with IBM. I joined the Jakarta EE marketing committee, and my first contribution was to the marketing plan for, must have been 2018.
Oh, my first contribution to open source. Yeah, that was like a Swing component, so a UI component for Java, and I was like curious to know how open source worked, and based on that I started to create a component and posted it online without knowing what I'm really doing here.
Right, so my first contribution to open source, I think if we count GitHub contribution, it was possibly around 5 years ago, and it was microprofile. So it was part of the cleaning up the GitHub issues. So I don't have technical background, so I'm not a technical person, so I would not contribute code. But as part of the microprofile committee or community, I managed to contribute some of my time to help with GitHub issues. But I've been contributing to open source through various marketing activities and just advocating for Jakarta EE and microprofile.
So the first one, the website thing, I just needed to solve a problem that I had, and then I just thought that it might be nice to actually give it back to the community. But with Eclipse Collections was that I really wanted to support them, so I did that.
Well, we were writing a book on EJB. It was a EJB 3.0 book back then, and the author and I, my co-author and I, obviously talked about the technology as we were writing the book, and we sort of thought, hey, these are some great ideas, that we're coming up with, discussing. And we know that EJB 3.1 was going on at the moment, so we said, why not just go and document these features and say, hey, these are the features we'd like to see in a future spec. And in fact, some of the things that we entered, in fact, I believe the one that I entered, my very first open source contribution, actually wound up being included in the EJB 3.1 release. So little fun fact.
I'm very passionate about Java. One of the first languages I ever learned as a developer. In this role of marketing manager, I wanted to be able to contribute to evolution of Java into Jakarta EE, make sure that the role that IBM plays in the Java world and now with Jakarta EE is shown to the industry and make the most of the opportunity to really grow the community.
Yeah, as said, so I wanted to learn new stuff. I think I wanted to learn about, maybe it was SVN, that was quite new then, and Google had an open SVN for Google Project. There you were able to create your own repositories, kind of like open source repositories, and I just created a repository there with some Swing components and created a blog and wrote a blog post about it. It was like my first contribution actually, yeah.
As I am a community builder at Payara, I am very passionate about Jakarta EE, and one of the things that I do pretty much day to day is contributing to advocating about Jakarta EE and teaching and educating about the technology, both to developers, engineers, but also other marketers in the industry.
I think I have to blame the people involved in Jakarta EE that kind of dragged me into the whole thing. It's Ivar and the others involved there, so that through them we kind of slightly started getting more and more. There was this thing called microprofile, and then there was Jakarta EE involvement, and there was quite a few things between that. I started doing talks about that, writing blogs, and all this kind of stuff. So it started gradually, but it kind of escalated quickly.
Well, I've been involved in Java EE for forever and a day. So I was involved in Java E6, Java E7, Java E8. So frankly, I was intrinsically involved in the transition process from the JCPE as Java EE into Eclipse Foundation as Jakarta EE. So it's almost difficult to answer, when exactly, perhaps from day 0 or day -1 from what we know as Jakarta EE today. After a few years later, of course.
Strangely enough, I was brought into the developer marketing organization within IBM, and one of our focus areas was Java, and Jakarta EE was really taking off in terms of the evolution. And I was asked if I would take the lead in the marketing committee from an IBM perspective, and I was happy to do that.
So I'm getting involved into that before it became Jakarta EE actually, because I was part of expert groups in the JCP, in the Java community process, and one group I worked on was Java Bean validation, and that was then later part of Java EE that transferred to Eclipse, becoming Jakarta EE, and Java Bean validation, where I worked on, is Jakarta Bean validation now. So I started to be part of it before it moved actually to Eclipse. Yeah.
So my involvement in Jakarta EE started pretty much at the very beginning of Jakarta EE. Again, as part of Payara team, we were involved from the very beginning, and we are now members of the Eclipse Foundation, and I am part of the Jakarta EE marketing committee. So I do work a lot with other members of Jakarta EE and Jakarta EE committee and Eclipse Foundation. And yes, it is something that is really important for Payara, because obviously our Payara platform is compatible with Jakarta EE, so we want as many Java developers to be aware of benefits of Jakarta EE, and as many of them adopting the technology so they can also use Payara platform.
I would say that is not even specific for Jakarta EE, that is for all the open source projects coming from Eclipse or other foundations, to get in touch with the community. For Jakarta EE, there are open calendars, like Google calendars, that you can subscribe to their community meetings that you can just join and listen. So the easiest thing you can do is just join those meetings and listen. And there are special community meetings where you can go to and say like, oh yeah, I would like to contribute, I have no idea what to do. So those are the right places to be, and then how a contribution can look like depends on what you're interested in, right? You can contribute by doing a talk about Jakarta EE, doing TikTok videos about Jakarta EE, or contributing to documentation or even spec. So there are a lot of possibilities, but the first thing always is to get in touch with the community, with the ecosystem, and for that those meetings are perfect.
I think the best way to start your contributions is obviously visiting the Jakarta EE website. There's a lot of information there on how to contribute. There's also a nice little video on the website that literally tells you all the steps on how to contribute. I was actually talking about this earlier at the OCX conference, so you can rewatch my presentation. I talk a lot about starting a contribution, but I think is at the end of the day is finding the project that you are really passionate about, or maybe project that you are already involved in, that you are already using. Check the GitHub page for that project, see any guidelines there, and check the issues and see if you can contribute in any way through the GitHub issues.
Start small. Start very small and do one little thing, get a taste of it, enjoy it, do another thing, make it a little bit bigger, maybe if you want to, and enjoy it, and then keep going. And at some point you will be doing a lot of great stuff, just even without knowing it.
So there's many different ways you can contribute. The most obvious one is, if you want to call it a contribution or not, it's an open question, but simply writing a blog entry about, let's say, Jakarta EE11 features, or deciding to do a talk about why Jakarta is interesting versus some other technology. That is a contribution of sorts, and in fact it is an important contribution. Above and beyond that, if you want to contribute to the standards themselves, basically the answer that I gave you before about my own initial contribution, that is a good clue of how to get started. So there is very easy to find a list of specifications that is in Jakarta EE. You can find out what the corresponding GitHub issue, GitHub repository is, and there's a bunch of GitHub issues there. Some of them will hopefully have a getting started tag or help wanted tag on it, so contributing towards that is an easy way to contribute. Another easy way to contribute, which I also did back then in the 3.1 days, is simply contributing sort of to the discussion, contributing opinions, contributing maybe either clarifying or supporting somebody else's idea. And the way you do that is through a mailing list. So each project, again, just like it has a GitHub issue tracker, also has a corresponding mailing list. So you can get on the mailing list, and as simple as send an email to that mailing list.
I would start with simply getting to know what Jakarta EE is all about. There are many different aspects to the way the technology is evolving, and if you get to learn about what Jakarta EE is, all the different aspects of it, and then apply it in your own work environment, either as a developer and just seeing what capabilities you can make use of with Jakarta EE, or as in my case a marketer, finding out how you can contribute either articles or blogs, or go to events like this where you can really tell other people about the value of Jakarta EE.
Interesting discussions with community members, but do let us know in the comments section if you have any questions about the process to get involved with Jakarta EE. But Tanya, does the contribution have to be only to code or specifications?
No, not at all. It really depends on your personal interest or one's personal interest and area of expertise. Basically it can be non-technical or technical contribution and participation. So you can really, from the technical perspective, you can look into if you're interested into doing the examples or working on a implementation project, or working on the specification project. There are many ways to contribute in technical ways. There is a lot of ways to contribute in terms of the content. And in content, you can write white papers, blogs, articles, all sorts of things. And then finally, for all non-technical work, you can get involved in marketing activities, or you can simply retweet or repost, let me put it that way, repost anything related to Jakarta EE on any of the social medias and just amplify the message. If you get any work related to Jakarta EE done, we would encourage you to let us know, because we would love to hear from you and celebrate your involvement in Jakarta EE community. Also, in order to get involved in any way you choose, we would really encourage you to look into connecting with us and stay connected. As always, you can choose to have the starting point Jakarta.ee, our website, and choose from there stay connected page. You can sign up to the mailing list, whether it's community mailing list, working group mailing list. And finally, you will see there are various project mailing lists. So that's a fabulous way to get connected and looped into the area that you're particularly interested in, and then start working with us.
Yeah, for sure. We also have a video from Ivar that explains how you can find a project and contribute. So let's take a look.
Yeah, that's a good way if you're interested in technical work to find out how to do it. Thank you.
If you wonder how to navigate and find information about the Jakarta EE specifications, you have come to the right place. Centrally located on the Jakarta EE website, you find the specifications drop-down menu. By selecting Browse Specifications, you will find a list of all the Jakarta EE specifications. Notice that under the name of each specifications, you can find a link called Project. So what is the relationship between a project and a specification? Well, a Jakarta EE specification project can produce multiple specifications. For example, the Jakarta EE platform project produces the specifications for Jakarta EE platform, Jakarta EE web profile, and Jakarta EE core profile. If we look at one of these projects, for example, the Jakarta MVC project, and click on the project link, you can see that you find all the information you need about the project here. On the first page, you can find the previous releases as well as the planned upcoming releases. You can see who's involved in the project, and also the Developer Resources tab will show you the GitHub repositories for this project. And in the GitHub repositories, that's where the work is done. Here you can navigate the issues and look at the pull requests if there are any, and of course you can look at the code. So I hope you've now learned how you can navigate to find information about the project. To repeat, click the Browse Specifications on the Jakarta EE webpage and then look at the project links.
Thanks, Ivar, and keep it up. We want more of these videos.
For sure, yeah, they're always helpful.
So it is actually interesting to see and hear from you where you're dialing from. Today, we're having Philip Kruger here with us, and he's dialing in and joining us as a speaker all the way from Australia. So it is fabulous to have speakers from all over the world. And today, Philip will be talking about writing queryable APIs with microprofile GraphQL. So take it away.